everyone, and thank you for joining us. My name is Jennifer Vita from Network Support Company, and we have with us today Buddy Pitt, one of our cybersecurity experts. Thank you for joining us today, Buddy.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yes, it's exciting. Today we will discuss the cybersecurity landscape, namely what are the threats and who are they targeting. This is the first of a three-part series. If you have any questions or comments throughout, please contact us. We'd love to support you in any way we can. So without further ado, Buddy, let's get started. Can you tell us a little bit about the current cybersecurity landscape?
Sure. So the cybersecurity threat landscape has changed drastically over the last 10 years. So if we think back 10 years ago, we were dealing with maybe tens of millions of threats, and that's ballooned up to close to 1 billion threats today. So not only has the volume of these threats increased, but the capabilities, the technology involved in them, and the damage that they do to organizations has grown drastically as well. So these threats today are more designed around exfiltrating data or allowing remote access into organizations rather than just being a nuisance like they were 10 years ago.
So you mentioned malware, Buddy. I've heard a lot about this in cybersecurity. What does that mean?
So malware is just malicious software, and that's how the two words make malware. And really what malware is any piece of software that cyber criminals or someone gets on your computer and it makes the computer process information other than how you intended it to work.
Okay, that's simple. What about, so this current threat landscape has currently been growing. What is the reason for this escalation in the past decade?
Sure. So it really comes down to the monetization of data. Data's become the most valuable commodity in the world today, even surpassed oil this year. So it's the amount of data that organizations are creating and holding. It's valuable that these cyber criminals want to be able to steal, and they have places that they can sell it.
Okay, and that's the dark web, correct?
That's right.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. So to compare it to what we call the clear web, this is the clear web is what we describe the internet as everyone knows it. You go on Google, you search for something, that's all part of the clear web. And it's called that because we can see all of the traffic, who's sending traffic, who's receiving traffic, and so on. The dark web, you need a special browser to connect to. And once you're connected to this network, your traffic gets routed all around the world and is obfuscated or hidden so that no one can actually see what's going on.
Oh gosh, scary. So little accountability there. What are these people actually taking home, their earnings at the end of the day?
So cyber criminals could make a range of different revenues. So at the beginning, lower level cyber criminals that are just trying to go through and interact with as many individuals or organizations every day, they could bring home around $3,500 of monthly revenue. At the next level, they get a little bit more organized. Sometimes there's groups of people that are working together, and in this range, they could be bringing in anywhere between $50,000 and $60,000 of monthly recurring revenue. At the higher end are the guys that are actually developing the software and hosting the platforms, and we've seen revenues up to $1 million or even $2 million a month.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Oh, so clearly it's lucrative. And what are they going after specifically for data? You mentioned it's valuable. What data are they looking for?
Sure. So when you think about data that's valuable, think of anything that you would fill out on a loan application form. So if you're putting in your name and address and phone number, this is things that we call PII, or personally identifiable information. You can also find this type of information in payment card information, PCI, HIPAA type information, or protected health information. So any of these data sources are treasure troves for cyber criminals to steal.
So once they have this data, where exactly is it being used, Buddy?
Sure. So once they pull the data out of organizations, it'll end up on the dark web and marketplaces like we were talking about earlier. So these marketplaces are a place for cyber criminals to be able to connect with each other and exchange their wares. Right? And the important thing to remember is that there's people playing different roles. So there's the cyber criminals that are stealing the data and exfiltrating it. Then on the dark web, there's cyber criminals that are hosting marketplaces to connect. And then they have buyers that they can connect to. So there's a whole ecosystem that's happening out there where these transactions can occur.
So clearly, Buddy, these are well-organized criminals. Can you tell us a little bit about who they're targeting?
Sure. Well, unfortunately, they kind of target everyone, and no one's really immune to cybercrime. But there are two groups that are targeted differently. And we see large organizations are being targeted by some of the more advanced threat actors that have the capabilities of developing their own custom malware, and they're working these targets to get in for months. One of the reasons that they do that is because the wares that they reap are much greater. So for example, when Target was breached back in 2014, those hackers were able to walk away with about $55 million from that heist. It was very well organized. Small businesses, mid-sized businesses, and individuals are also targeted, but they're more targeted by the run-of-the-mill cyber criminals that are using more of a broad spectrum type of malware that's more effective across all these different things. So everyone is targeted, just with different groups, different purposes.
Okay, so clearly we all have to be on our guard, whether you're an individual or a large organization. Can you tell us a little bit about the consequences that businesses can expect beyond just monetary expenses?
Sure. Well, the biggest impact that cybercrime has on small and mid-sized businesses, even large organizations, is the lack of productivity. They're unable to produce their products or ship their products or service their customers. Then, of course, there could be hard costs if you're dealing with a ransomware infection or something like that. You may have to actually pay someone that's holding you ransom to get your data back. And then there could be reputational damage. Anytime you can't fill your obligations to your customers, it could damage you, and they could go somewhere else to get services.
So clearly we need to guard ourselves. Buddy, is there anything we can do on a practical level to minimize our risk?
Sure. One of the best things that organizations can do to manage risk around cyber threats is to engage other outside help. Managed service providers are great at making sure that their network infrastructure and operating systems and software is maintained. And we want to be able to manage that right from the firewall to the endpoints to training the users to identify threats.
So clearly it's helpful to engage an expert. Buddy, any final thoughts to share with us?
Yeah, actually, as I think about defending companies against cyber criminals, something that always comes to mind is that us on the security side have to get it right every time. The cyber criminals only have to get it right once. So this is where doing a little bit of due diligence and footwork up front could save a lot of headaches in the long run.
Makes sense. So being proactive is a must. Well, we thank you for your time, Buddy, and for our audience for joining us. That concludes the first video in our 3-part series. We hope you'll join us for the next 2 covering tactics and prevention. In the meantime, feel free to reach out to us, check out our resources on our website, or share this video with your friends and colleagues. A little peace of mind can go a long way.